All right, I am going to call to order the March 10th, the town council meeting. And before we stand to the pledge, after the Pledge of Allegiance, we're going to do a full moment of silence, or pretty close to it, in memory of Dave Ritson, who passed away 5 years ago, was a town employee. So this tonight just happens to be the 5-year anniversary. So we're going to do a recognizable moment of silence in his memory. So,
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everybody. We have no proclamations or presentations tonight. We can start off with public petitions or communications and public participation on any subject within the jurisdiction of the town council with a 2-minute limit. Once, not twice. All right. No public hearing items tonight. Reports of boards and committees responsible to the council. There are not any here tonight. Reports of town council liaisons.
Short list today. Planning and zoning did not meet last night. Sustainable CT also has not had a meeting this month. The census is coming this week, so please be on the lookout. You will receive in the mail an invitation to participate in the census. It could come between the 12th and the 20th. We have a friendly wager going on with the town of Coventry, our neighbors. And if we get a higher percentage within the first week, Mike gets a pizza.
Mike gets a pizza.
Yes.
That's personal gain here. Are we splitting that up? Like, how are we gonna divvy that up?
Maybe we can do it for the staff.
Right there.
That's a great idea, so
Wow.
please help the staff out, because Mike is gonna share his pizza with the staff.
You heard that, right, Mike? You heard that,
If
right?
if Coventry beats us with percentages after the first week, then Mike is gonna have to provide pizza to the staff over at Coventry. So,
This gets down to
Wait,
like
is that
the
on your
different
own?
pizza.
That's on your own dime.
Yeah.
This is the different pizza places
Because I didn't see
too.
that in a line item.
So, in Tolland, you'd have to get one of the Tolland pizza,
yeah, exactly.
in Coventry, you got Wicked Slice. So, there's like the whole,
There's no reason.
there is a new one, but Wicked Slice is like the,
Yes.
so.
Yes, John Elsesser and I, we talked about it, and this is a friendly wager between
Yeah.
us.
Exactly.
Yes. Hope you win.
So, the best way to get that done is to make sure you please fill those out. It'll also ensure that a census worker does not come knocking on your door in the months of June, July, or August. So please go ahead and do that. Your invitation will include a way to participate online. This is the first time, so you guys are participating in history here. When you are filling it out, it will ask you questions in case you need to know who's to count and who not to count. Some of the population that doesn't get counted the most is kids. So all the kids count. If you have any questions, you can see Mike or I, even Karen Moran, she's on the committee. Tourism, we met yesterday. We actually had quite a few discussions about the impact of the COVID-19 and what we're expecting for the industry. But some of the interesting things that are coming out, we're doing, again, every town has a story. The state of Connecticut should be releasing those soon. I say that every time, I know. They keep saying that every time. But we're also creating some booklets on various themes. Themes like women, business and industries, museums to go to, farming, agriculture, things like that.
We have all those things.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
we have all three, we got that.
So, and I'm in charge of creating all of those themes. And we also have a very cool Sinfully Connecticut.
Simply, well, we got something down there.
That's not what we're talking about. And then land acquisition did not have a meeting, and I think that's all my commissions.
Permanent Celebration Committee actually meets next Tuesday, is that the 17th?
Yes.
Yes, but unfortunately, we have a meeting here, so I will get the minutes from the lady who chairs that,
Mary Pat,
Mary Pat, and get that over for the next council meeting.
I can't wait to hear what they're doing.
Yes.
So this past Saturday, the Conservation Commission met at the proposed mountain bike trail for a site walk with the New England Mountain Bike Association. So there are two representatives from there, one from Middletown who does all the trail mapping, and another representative, I believe, from Bayville that kind of represents the Quiet Corner region. So they kind of reached a 2-hour site walk of what people proposed, what we've done. They're looking at a beginning to intermediate level style mountain bike course, and there are about 500 members across the state of Connecticut that could possibly take advantage of that, and there's a good contingent that are interested in volunteering, building that trail once it's all finalized in the coming months and years. So, and then last night was a Tolland Public Library Foundation meeting. They finally closed out a lawsuit that was made on behalf of another trustee from the Barlow Cox Query donation to the library, so they received an extra $10,437 to their budget as a result of that lawsuit. So they got some additional operational funds for that. They had a couple of great events. They had Jeff Goldberg, who wrote a book on Yukon, and then Gene Zulik Ferrulo did a book, I believe Galaxy of Stars, and both were well attended, at least 30 to 48 people, so the library's doing well. And of course, also just that they want to make note of the fact that if you are looking to do the census online, the library is an option. So if you want to do it online and avoid those people that say you don't have access to a computer or don't know
George,
or need assistance, you can get that assistance that way at the library.
library computer.
And then they will come to your house and bug you for all the
You
questions.
can also do it on the phone, you don't have
Oh,
to.
you can.
Yeah, do it on the phone, and yes,
Put in mail.
mail is another option, so,
Can you do it if you have a personal computer at home, or do you
Yeah.
have to do it?
yeah, absolutely.
Probably do it on your phone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure about that.
Yeah, okay.
As long as it's up to date.
Otherwise, the next Conservation Commission meeting is one of our budget discussions, as is I think one of the other meetings, possibly not. Yeah, at least the very least this week's Conservation Commission meeting, I won't be able to attend.
Yeah, we'll have some people for the next
Yeah.
one.
Alright, and I'm all set.
I had an EDC meeting, which was good. We're going to be getting something on the calendar to start working on the business forum again. Talked about the local business activity. The brewery for beer and gear is still moving forward. They're working with the Small Business Administration right now, looking for grants and money. They're still very amped up to come to Tolland, and I think they're in conversations with Gerber to put it in that area, so I think it's good. We can throw out a couple other options, like possibly looking at 7-Eleven building, which I think would be a much better location for them. And it already has refrigeration and stuff, so we're definitely working with them still. And Todd has started doing a digital campaign with the guy who's doing the filming. Their first filming bit was done by the highway, where they're showing, all of the connectivity that Tolland has, with the highway and Yukon and everything else and the crossroads. And he's looking at doing a whole digital campaign of why Tolland and handling it through online social media stuff. So they're already done some filming and they're doing some editing and they're getting it all ready for social media formatting and uploading it. River of Life moved to their new location this weekend, which means we've now got availability up in Twin Ponds. So it was a good meeting with them. We did not have Eastern Highlands, it got canceled. And I was not able to attend the Board of Ed because I wasn't feeling well, but I see Karen is here. So Karen, could you maybe give us an update of what happened at the last Board of Ed meeting, please?
Sure. We just had a couple items, in major last meeting. Tomorrow's meeting, I was just gonna remind people that it's at the high school library. This is the time of year where we have conflicting meetings. And then just some things going on in the schools. At the high school, our DECA state competition was March 4th. Tolland had its largest contingent of 74 students.
70-something kids, right?
74. They have a new state officer team, which is all 4 of them are Tolland students. So very impressive showing for Tolland this year. THS received 37 medals with 21 students qualifying for international competition. So I'm not kudos to all of them. As far as I know, Footloose is still on this weekend.
Here, I'm gonna do it for you.
Thank you. But I know the kids have all been working really hard as usual, and it's usually fantastic.
Just want some dancing, just want the dance out at the prom scene.
I believe there's still tickets available, and the banner looks great. It's out on green, so thanks to the town staff that gets that up for us. March 2nd was Read Across America Day at TIS. I think they did some things at Birch Grove too, usually around Dr. Seuss' theme. TIS students and staff dressed up in their favorite book characters. So lots of fun pictures of that. This week, March 9th through the 13th, it is Mathness Week. Students will attend assemblies and participate in competitive, fun-filled math games and activities. So getting their math on this week.
A math bee, I like.
Birch Grove kindergarten registration is in full swing, currently in progress. So they're, I believe, doing a lot of that online now. So
Yeah, it's a packet or something.
A
that
little-
people know.
you know, I think some bumps in the road as people get used to doing that online instead of the old-fashioned paper way, which takes a lot of time and resources to make that happen. And the middle school, they have Career Day coming up on March 18th. I think the STEM Femmes are doing something that day too as part of it. And of course, SBAC testing begins the end of March, in all the grades. And tomorrow's Cave Day on the Hill, and I'll be attending that in Hartford before it comes down to LOB.
Yeah, they're closing it, right?
Yeah, they're closing
Thursday,
Thursday and Friday.
Yeah.
But this is still on, so I'm going tomorrow for that event and meeting
Bring it
legislators. As far as I know, the governor's supposed to be there and the education committee leaders. So hopefully we will have their ears.
Talk to them about spreading out ECS funding for us for longer.
So we'll see if there's a lot of hot topics around social emotional learning and the excess cost.
Are there any bills that are going on right now that you need people to sign up, write in for or anything? I know there's a lot of testimony going on right now at the
The
Capitol.
ones
but-
that are on my mind right now are the ones I just mentioned. The social emotional learning is a big thing for the staff, teachers, and the students.
There was one that was a mandate that was up, I just read about
The
that.
excess cost thing is for special ed.
Yeah.
The 5044, which was the forced immunization.
Well, no, but there was one that was specific, I think that was going on right now with, there was the curriculum one, there was also one about hygiene products, but I actually reached out to Mike today, I don't know what they're doing, if maybe you hear anything. I know one of the issues with the coronavirus thing is the mandate that the schools have to use those green
Yes,
products.
they were trying to, I don't know if it went through I know a lot of the superintendents were trying to get
Exemption from that, right?
exemption from having to use those approved cleaning products, so we could use Clorox wipes and
Right.
things like that.
So,
Because the other things don't kill viruses.
They don't kill
That
the,
stuff doesn't kill viruses.
no, it doesn't, it doesn't kill any of the bacteria.
No, I wasn't being facetious, I wasn't trying to be
no.
funny, I was just,
Yeah, no.
But the schools literally can't use Clorox bleach or wipes or anything like that. They have to use this green product. It's a mandate. It's one of those
Okay.
ridiculous
Yeah.
mandates.
It's
So-
like safe cleaning products.
okay.
So when they,
Like,
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I'm kind of jumping the gun, but earlier today, the governor declared a state of emergency in Connecticut, so that, I believe, takes the green products off the table. I think anything that's sold in stores or over the counter, so to speak, is eligible, so Clorox wipes, Lysol wipes are allowed at this time now.
I'm sure they're ready for it and stocking up, so.
oh, I hope so, because you can't get them anywhere else, so, that's
And
There was
just-
guidance, there was guidance provided by, I forget where it came from, an email though, and I can share that with council and you, Karen. That, and I believe maybe you have received it already, but it did say, anything that's sold at the stores is allowable now.
That's good.
So I'm sure they're ready for it, and just as a little side note, we are doing overtime for custodians to do extra cleaning.
Yeah.
So that's a plan.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
That's it.
And report from me. So, Birch Grove, Building Committee had a meeting last week that, biggest things that occurred is, of course, there's part of the foundation that there's, that they going through. We had a few spots where there was a remediation of some of the dirt that we need to clear out. That steel contract was, we discussed the award of the steel contract to STS Steel. That was for a price of about $2 million for the steel. That we worked out the entire construction schedule, you know, the whole timeline as far as when things should be occurring, the plan of action and measures. That we also went through the change order process, talking about if there was going to be a smaller line level purchase, who would have the authorization, instead of having to go in front of the entire committee, authorizing Mike to sign off on certain purchases, and we're just working on the amount and the restrictions regarding that, so that people wouldn't just come up repeatedly in asking for, you know, if we set a $10,000 limit, people coming in at $9,900 on a regular recurring basis. Those are the big issues that we covered to this point. The biggest thing is that, as it stands right now, they're a little behind schedule because of some issues that they had for digging out the foundation area. But that they, upon speaking with the contractors and the general contractor, that they should be staying on track, and that there'll be a closed timeline, but that they're hoping to stay so that we don't have an issue of running over. And that's all I have.
So last week I had the agricultural meeting. We discussed again about the Campbell Farm and leasing that out to a farmer, and some more discussion on that. And I also want to thank the Department of Public Works for coming and cleaning up all the garbage that was left. So they did that, was great. And they're getting ready to start finalizing the Tolland Grown Passport, which is a new initiative to get people out to Tolland farms and reward them for that. Besides that, rec department was canceled yesterday, so that's that.
All right, that gets us to 8.1, consideration of a resolution authorizing the town manager to enter into a contract with the State Library Association for a historic documents preservation grant for a full year 2020-2021.
Okay, so good evening, councilors. Town Clerk Sheila Bailey is excited to bring forward this grant opportunity to restore and preserve 60 original linen and paper maps. I believe this is a grant we apply for every year, and if Sheila want to provide some more information on this?
Yes, this is a grant we apply for every year. The amount changes a little bit. It comes from a surcharge that was put on the land records for every document that gets filed. And its purpose is to use it to preserve records that are permanent records in the town vault. And so this year, we're continuing a project that we started a few years ago. We have several hundred original maps, survey maps that are our oldest maps that are fragile and in need of repair. I think back in the day, they really weren't stored properly and they were folded and they're ripping, and so this would pay for the restoration and preservation of those maps. Those are permanent records that required to make sure they live for the next generation.
They're awesome too, when you actually go look at them, they're old and, yeah, like books.
Just out of curiosity, how old are these?
Our maps in town aren't as old as our other land records, so our maps, I think the earliest one is 1906. So
That's
these
old.
That's old. We have some land records from the 1700s, so it didn't seem quite as old.
Yeah.
Having been on title searches and using those maps and for property, I think that it's a great idea to have them preserved and stored.
Right, we digitalize them,
Yeah.
I was
so
gonna
that's
say, are they
really what the
digitalized?
title searchers use, but I still am required to maintain those
Right.
original records.
Does anybody have any questions for Sheila? No. This is an easy one for you.
Okay, so otherwise, Madam Chair, I think you can motion to authorize a resolution authorizing town manager to enter into the contract with the State Library Association for historic documents preservation grant for fiscal year 2020 to 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstaining? Motion passes. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you.
8.2, health insurance update presented by Seth Levine and from Lockton Companies. I'm assuming that's,
Yep,
That's
and
you guys'
and
idea.
Seth is joined by Adrian Levsky. They're gonna talk about their presentations on the benefits of self-funding and also just a high-level overview of our budget dollars, so. Yep.
How's everybody doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. And I promise I'll try to get my census in the first week.
Oh, good. Yes, I
are
want
you
the
here in
pizza.
town?
I am, yeah.
Oh, you are, okay, yes. We definitely want your sentences in the
Yes,
first.
absolutely.
I'm actually waiting for mine to get it done. I just want it done.
We'll see. Hope they're not too busy working on Tolland. So I just want to start, like, just a little level set. I don't know what everybody's comfortableness is with health insurance and funding arrangements or anything like that.
I work at Sigma.
All right.
I'm good.
So you're good. All right. So for everyone else then, most plan, a lot of smaller plans are fully insured, and I'm sure you're used to that term, which is you pay a premium to the insurance company, and they will handle all your claims administration and customer service, make sure everything gets paid for you. And if your costs go over those rates, it's okay because they pay it anyway. So for self-funding though, there's a lot of advantages, which is going to be you control your ultimate plan designs. You have much more control over your pharmacy formulary. You're able to better meet union contracts, any little discrepancies. And then over the long term anyway, you're gonna hopefully save costs, which would be coming from favorable years, and you put them away and save them so that you can cover later years that are not as favorable. But in the long run, you do expect about an 8 to 10% savings. So the components of that are administrative costs, which is gonna cover your claims administration and customer service. There's gonna be a network access fee, which covers using the Cigna network for discounts. And then after that is all claim charges. And then at the end, we go ahead and put in a stop loss product, which is a premium. And that's gonna cover any catastrophic losses from individual claims to make sure that the town claims don't spike. So are there any questions on that? All right.
You had a question?
I did, so what do we do today? What does the town do today? Are we self-funded today?
Yes, yeah, there's no, he's just giving an update sort of.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'll just get into
Just
the,
wanted to make sure.
yeah. I only started that way so that I can get into the variable nature of
Very
self-funding. And so you're gonna have your good years and your bad years. And so this year, we are projecting the total need between claims and administrative costs to be 7.9 million, which is gonna be a little bit higher than a normal year, but it's to be expected over the run of a self-funded plan.
Why is it higher this year than normal year?
Yeah, so with a self-funded plan, when we're doing projections, there's always going to be what's called trend in your assumption. And trend would cover different hospital networks coming, negotiate upper negotiations with the carrier, and so the costs get a little more. You're talking about new medications coming to market, new procedures and equipment. And so the cost of health insurance just rises over time. And so they put a lot of stuff into trend, but it's important over the long run to make sure you're calculating for it. It doesn't always come to fruition. Some years you might have a negative, some years you might come in at zero, but then some years you might be plus 20, 25. But over the long run, a trend assumption of about 7% a year is pretty accurate.
Claims experience too. How healthy is your populace?
Yeah, and the good news is that right now, all of the town and board employees, besides maybe less than a handful, are on high deductible plans, which have shown to be a really great way of curbing trend in the long run. I wouldn't say that
We have
they're.
a whole nother conversation about that, I'm not a fan, but,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a cost shift.
Yeah.
I work for the insurance.
Any other questions on health insurance? Well, it's nice meeting everyone, and if you have any questions, follow-ups after, just, you can send him the mic and he'll work with us to get answers back to you.
Thank you.
You guys all kind of looked at the budget for insurance on
Yeah.
this. So,
Yeah, there's any question.
yeah. You guys are easy, I technically can't really say much, you guys are super easy, I would have definitely had a million, but we're good. Appointments to vacancies on various municipal boards and commissions.
We do have one today.
So Madam Chair, if you entertain a motion to appoint Megan Carpenter of Royal Goose Lane to the Tolland Water Commission for a term of 1/31/2020 to 1/31/2024. My only comment about it is that when I was at one of the last water commission meetings, they talked at great lengths about how excited they were to have her coming to a meeting. And she's very professional, she's an engineer, so it's a lot of skills and engagement and energy that they've kind of missed for some time.
So, you made a motion, right?
Yes.
Oh, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion passes. Welcome. Thank you for stepping up. And we do have several other openings, which we'll have to go out and post again. Do we have anybody waiting right now?
There's one for, I believe, Parks and Rec because of the cancellation of the meeting. They couldn't make it, so they should be attending the subsequent meeting.
Okay. That gets us to old business.
Before we depart.
Oh,
Oh, that's right, no, I'm
It's
sorry,
got
you're right.
the executive session. So, Madam Chair, if you're going to entertain a motion to add an executive session to new business, so we'll do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained?
I'll just say why we are going to.
Oh, sorry.
For personnel matter, yeah, personnel matter. All right, so that motion carries, and then we'll move that, I don't know if we have to,
Well, the end of it will be at the end of the meeting, so you
Yes.
wanna do it. You
we're
wanna
gonna
do it after
public.
15.
Yeah, after
Yeah.
15.
Okay, so
So,
add item 16, so then adjournment is 17 for the purposes of the executive session.
because we have to come back.
You have to come back and, yeah, any votes have to be done public.
So, let's add that 16. Executive session, and then make adjournment 17.
So
Okay.
you need to make that motion too.
Yep, I did. Here's the
And that's
second.
second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Okay. All right, that gets us to old business. 9.1, discussion on establishing a commission on people with disabilities. And I'd just like to first point out that we are changing it from a commission on disabilities to a commission on people with disabilities. So that's like the first of all, not there, but
Yeah, that was one of the pieces of feedback we received, which we implemented immediately. I think it was a good suggestion to not focus on the disabilities, to focus on the people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where we last left off with this agenda item was back in January 28th, which feels like a lifetime ago. We had said at the meeting that we would like to poll the public and see how they feel about instituting a commission on people with disabilities. And we did, and we had received 37 results, which are in the packets. I believe the tally was 33 yeses and 33 yeses, 4 noes to should we establish a commission on disabilities. All the comments are there for the council to consider. Also part of your packet, I believe, was the draft mission statement, which we put together back in January. And we're still open to any feedback on changing the mission statement. And I guess what you could do tonight, if you feel comfortable, is make any edits to the draft mission statement, and if you're pleased with it, we could set a public hearing at the next council meeting.
So did everybody have a chance to go through and read these? Because there was some good suggestions in here, a lot of good feedback, I thought, across the board. Like, there was a lot of good feedback. And also, there were a couple of things that were said in here that I was like, that's actually something we should highlight and think about going forward. I think it was also really good that 37 people replied back to that. You know, it's a small number compared to our population, but it's a lot of attention to something like this. You know, it was more than, I didn't expect that we were gonna get that many, to be
I feel like
honest.
the survey format kind of like is more inviting sometimes than just sending out an email because it feels more engaged and there's a process.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Anybody else have any feedback on it?
No, I thought the draft was really good. I think, you know, probably utilizing some of what was provided here as a part of maybe our public hearing, just reviewing the comments at that point, as well as encouraging more people to provide input if they miss the timeline for the survey itself.
I would think too that using some of the feedback in here would be good for like the bylaws. What the commission establishes, having this feedback is you know, good for them, so things to consider.
I agree.
So would you like to add anything to the mission statement then, based on the feedback from these
That's what the
residents?
mission statement was.
Yeah, I think the commission stated that it's encompassing enough but broad enough to serve as a good mission statement. I think that anything that wants to be that we want to incorporate could be part of the bylaws, it could be part of the other, some other aspect of the commission. But I think that the draft mission statement is actually pretty spot on.
Including the composition as well?
Yes.
I'll point that out.
Yeah.
I just had one observation on the feedback somewhere in here. I was trying to find it. Somebody mentioned, oh, here it is, I apologize. Somebody mentioned mental health and disabilities generally go hand in hand. So I think we just want to make the distinction at some point, right, that we're also forming the other committee, you know, around mental health. Yeah, right, so for that, so I just wanted to make sure that whatever future communication goes out, that we distinguish,
Yeah.
that there'll be a separate committee on that, just so folks aren't confused by which is handling which, that's all.
There was also something somewhere, and I don't remember where, something about, I can't remember exactly what it was, but something about the schools, and I think it's good to this is like, I don't know, to me, all the people that have come forward in that, it's more about what happens after. They get us-
Age out, but
They're
there were
right,
a couple
and
of them in there around that.
You know, it's like the young adult kind of aging out things. I think the schools do a great job with inclusion and you know, handling the special needs and stuff that we have of students. This, to me, I almost felt like it was more the older groups and that, like the after transition kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't want to muddy the waters on, you know, I don't want to say it's this, it's not that, but I don't want it to be, you know, like more focused on one thing than the other, but.
But I mean, I also think though that there's that you need to at least keep the schools involved in some way because to aid in that transition.
That the Transition Academy, I think,
Right.
is huge, you know, what they're doing with the Transition Academy, kind of partnering up at least with that area.
Right.
Because that's a good way to kind of have internship opportunities and possibly employment opportunities, businesses that are working with that already, maybe to establish the post-transition stuff, so I see there's crossover, but I don't
Yeah.
see it as the same exact like depth that the schools do with the younger kids already.
Right.
And Mike, I'm not sure too, like if we say we're good with this mission statement, after we actually form the commission, after we vote on it, and if it passes and all that, and then it gets formed, I'm assuming at that point, if somebody wants to change something in here, that's within their prerogative to go over the mission statement and say, you know, we want to tweak.
I think
Or would that be in the
it may
bylaws?
have to, well, they certainly can establish bylaws that maybe will flesh out some of the generalities in here. I think if they wanted to tweak the mission statement with regards to the composition of the committee or any of the overarching 4 bullet points, they would probably need to come back to council
Yeah.
to say, hey, we really need to amend the mission statement and have another public hearing on it.
Right.
And that, because technically this will be an ordinance
the
and we will need to do a public hearing on any ordinance amendments. But if they want to establish bylaws that flesh out the details, they can do that in their own prerogative, yes.
Yes, right, I'm good with that.
So the original emails that we received from some of the people who came and spoke, we're talking about partnerships between the town hall and the Board of Ed, in this commission, in senior center, et cetera. And I don't see any of that referenced here. So I didn't know what that would look like.
And that follows.
The first email that came from Ms. Hughes, she had a whole list of initiatives that she wanted to see in this commission. And it contained language that had liaisons between this commission and the Board of Ed, Senior Center and others, and I didn't bring the email, I'm sorry. Because, you know, it was overreaching throughout the entire town, making sure that people with disabilities are recognized and their needs are recognized. So I didn't see how this addressed those concerns that she had.
I think that that's something, again, where, you know, this is, for a mission statement, we need it broad, and I understand what you're saying, but it's something that I think that once we get the commission up and moving, that is something that can be addressed in their bylaws, in developing liaisons, things like that. That's how I think that's really where it should belong, is inside there, because that's where, that way it gives the commission flexibility to adjust accordingly, where if it's set in stone inside the mission statement, as Mike said, that we would need to have come back and have a public hearing on it, where this way with the bylaws, they can adjust it on their own through a majority vote, so.
I think, I also, I actually spoke to Susan, and when she was emailing and that too, back and forth, and she seemed happy with the mission statement as we have it. I think a lot of what you're saying and what she brought up, and that is definitely specifics, you know, working with these different areas and everything, which I think it kind of falls underneath the, for us, analyze the services for persons with disabilities provided by the community, both public and private agencies, and make recommendations to the town council regarding their findings. So I think kind of a lot of the stuff that she's talking about would get wrapped up into like one of the broader bullet points, like maybe it is more fleshed out, in either their bylaws or their goals.
Or the way they set themselves up as a commission, right? I would imagine that on the commission, right, they would say, hey, I'm gonna be the liaison to the Board of Ed, or I'm gonna be the liaison to,
Yes.
to the other lady that had an ongoing, I forget her name, but she spoke, but she had a committee that I think met during the day,
Yeah.
right?
The LTC.
Yeah.
Yeah, the LPCSO, right, so I think, you know, I think within that, Brenda, I think, yeah, I would agree, I think it's, I don't know if you wanna get too specific with the,
Right, I just wanted to make sure her needs were met.
Yeah, I did find the
Because she
email
was
in
one of
question.
the,
Yeah,
right.
that was from the
Thank you.
30th, so it was perhaps we're to start with a committee consisting of a rep from town council, Board of Ed, PZC, Human Services, School Special Services, concerned residents, and maybe a few business owners possibly. So it was kind of a very encompassing, and it was sort of a suggestion, but I think it definitely is important to make sure those areas of the community are recognized for this particular commission. That, you know, because obviously with the aging out, the one key issue I think I actually ran into Susan recently at Aldi's, and she had said, oh, you know, the one issue is finding employment too. Once they age out, is housing and then followed by employment, because obviously,
And then transportation.
yeah.
It's the trifecta, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this mission statement in that bottom paragraph sets up the 7 voting members of the commission,
Yeah.
who are, none of them are liaison appointments. Like, these are 7 new people for all intents and purposes. So liaison assignments from the council, from the Board of Ed, probably can be satisfied by the bylaws when the commission itself creates its own bylaws. These are the 7 voting members. All of those other liaisons will be ex officio or just non-voting members. They'd be able to participate, but not necessarily vote.
Or maybe from what she's saying, and this again, we're all kind of assuming right now what she means by this, but I'm almost thinking like if there were 7 members on there, maybe one of them is the liaison to the town council, you know, and one of them is the liaison to the Board of Ed or to the PZC.
Right.
So they can bring what they're doing to those organizations.
Yeah, and then the opposite's true too. If the council wants to send a liaison, or if the Board of Ed wants to send a liaison, they may.
Or if they require us at a certain meeting, you know, they wanna talk about, you know, what's happening with this at the schools and the transition academy, then they would contact the Board of Ed to say, can you send somebody to this meeting to discuss, kind of thing.
I just wanted to point out one other amendment that I think might be good. So this is the same draft as drafted back in January, but in that last paragraph, the big paragraph, about 5 lines down, the sentence that starts, members shall be appointed for terms of up to 3 years. I think it would be good to point out, members shall be appointed by the town council for
Yes.
terms up to 3
Yeah.
years.
Yes.
Because it is a council, it's gonna be responsible to the council.
So it's responsible, yeah, I agree.
Otherwise, I am all good.
You're good? I'm good with moving it to a public hearing.
So the action tonight, if you should decide to move it to a public hearing, because that wasn't actually on the agenda tonight, we have to create a new agenda item just to say,
There we go again?
yeah, I know,
Okay.
we're gonna rectify it though, it's just we weren't sure
Yes.
whether or not we're gonna be ready for a public hearing. So you would create a business item to talk about setting a public hearing regarding the Commission on People with Disabilities to be held on March 24th.
So I can entertain a motion to
Do we have
install.
to number it? Because 8.4 was the executive, so this would be like 8.5.
We could do it 9.3.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it would fall under old business, so it'd be 9.3, and entertain a motion to add that to the agenda to establish public hearing on the Commission on People with Disabilities.
Second.
Excuse me.
Could you repeat that?
Sorry. So I'm entertaining a motion to add 9.3 old business to the agenda, which would be consideration to establish public hearing for the establishment of a Commission on People with Disabilities.
Thank you.
No problem.
You know, we're not doing good with the name of this commission, because no matter how we abbreviate it, like, we didn't like COD because that's COD, now we have COPD, which, you know, like,
Really just do CPD.
we need to find like a better
I was
abbreviation.
gonna say R for residents, but that's court.
Yeah, see, like, you know, we're not doing good. Okay, so we have a motion, and we have a second, right?
Yeah.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. We'll get a,
We can go back to it.
yeah, we'll get.
Yeah, we'll do
get that.
9.2 then.
All right, so 9.2, consideration of a resolution to rescind the issuance of bonds approved by resolution on July 9th, 2019 for a fire rescue truck, and approval to provide $750,000 from the general fund to unassigned fund balance for the financing of the fire rescue truck and the setting of a public hearing thereon for March 24th, 2020. That was an awful lot.
Yes, it was. So speaking of public hearings, this other agenda item tonight is the continuation of our last meeting discussion on whether or not to pay cash for the fire truck that was originally in last year's capital plan to be paid for through a bond authorization, but that never happened back in July. So this step of the process was because the public hearing wasn't on the last agenda. We said we would table it till today to talk about whether or not to put it on a public hearing for our next meeting. So our next meeting might potentially have 2 public hearings for 2 different business items. But there really isn't any new information in your packet tonight. There's still Lisa's not here obviously, but she gave a nice presentation last time she was here about the difference between using cash and bonding and the difference that would mean with how much interest we would have to pay and how much money has already been spent on this on the town side. So I don't know if there's any additional questions, I can try to answer them.
What is the interest rate for money that's sitting in our unassigned fund balance? That's a hard one, I know.
Well, I'm trying to think of, yeah.
It's been around 2%.
Yeah, I think I
It's around-
said that was 2%.
Yeah, it's around 2%. It's higher than they expected, but I think that's what the,
Yeah, and interest rates have been favorable recently, but.
Right.
Yeah, I know that if we were to bond it, it's the 2.75 is the percent they're using to project out the net interest cost, I believe is.
Okay.
yeah, that's the APR, but it's compounded much higher than that. Anyway, so, because,
Go ahead.
No, I think one of these questions we can discuss at the public hearing, so.
so everybody
It's
knows.
good questions.
Well, like right now, we're just, like I said, we're just setting the public
Yeah,
hearing right now.
we can get,
Yeah.
figure out how much interest we're earning the fund balance and it'll be good information for the 24th.
So, I was entertaining a motion to establish the public hearing for March 24th for the consideration of a resolution to rescind the issuance of bonds approved by resolution on July 9th, 2019 for fire truck, and approval to provide $750,000 from the general fund for financing that fire truck in question.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Now we get our 9.3.
Yep, so consideration to set a public hearing on establishing a commission on people with disabilities for March 24th, 2020.
So I entertain a motion to do just that, to establish the public hearing for March 24th for the Commission on People with Disabilities. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries. All right, we're moving right along. 10, report from the town manager.
Okay, so a couple of things, there is a written report,
It's at 7:04.
You messing with the
Holy
energy?
seven.
You messing with the energy? Yeah.
saving energy.
Say it again.
So we do have a written report, but on top of that, I just wanted to point out a few other things. So Tammy mentioned the Economic Development Commission, that meeting that met on March 4th. She already talked about that. I did want to also mention that reference librarian Mary Ann Ainsworth retired March 5th, and we did a very nice proclamation for her. We wish her well. I think she was with us for over 30 years. So,
30 years.
God bless.
She started the year I graduated high school.
oh, wow.
And when they said that, I was like, wow, literally, the year I graduated.
Well,
I graduated.
And interested in how old Tommy is.
Yeah, exactly. I'm afraid of it. It's a number. I'm good. I'm
So
good.
we sent her off nice with a nice party, and we wish her well.
Lots of yummy good
That's
stuff.
great.
Very good stuff.
God bless her.
Little tears, some presents.
So on a more serious note, so Governor Lamont had a conference call on coronavirus yesterday and talked about some of the provisions that local governments should be taking. So I don't want to speak on behalf of the governor, but what I heard was governor recommended that the towns consider not having gatherings of 100 people or more, just to kind of keep the risk of coronavirus contagion low. So I don't know if that's a temporary thing or it's kind of an hour by hour update. We're not sure where this is going to go, but as of now, the guidance, it's not mandated, but the guidance from the state is not to have large gatherings. And he also mentioned that the state employees, there's a ban on their on inessential travel, I believe it was. So they are not traveling. And today, there was a press conference that I watched from my computer, and the state of emergency was declared in Connecticut, which I believe gives the governor some emergency powers. He said it was mostly around funding and emergency funding sources, and also having the power through the health department to quarantine folks that have been exposed to the COVID-19. So more to come on that. I would recommend if anybody's watching at home, go to the state's website to learn more about what the state of emergency does for the state of Connecticut.
I'm hoping you can get more masks for the hospitals.
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter's a nurse and it's a nightmare. They need to find a way to get more of those.
Yeah. In the meantime, the town's operating as normal. I've listened in on the conference calls. I've talked with some of our staff about if it gets to the point where we would need to consider some folks working from home or if anything happened. I know I do have a colleague in this profession that does have contracted coronavirus from meeting he was at, so it's possible that it could be contagious. I wasn't at that meeting. But I'm just saying.
Brenda's moving away.
I was in Massachusetts, I'm in Connecticut now, so. But we've talked about contingency plans and continuity of service and things like that. So I know town clerk who was here earlier mentioned to me if her office had to be quarantined for whatever reason, and then absentee ballots for the primaries are coming up, they're working out a deal with Ellington that we would cover each other if a catastrophic thing like that happened, that our residents could go to Ellington if this were to happen, and vice versa if they were quarantined there. But obviously this is just a worst case scenario. We're not planning on something like this happening. No news to you, but we have budget meetings March 11th, 12th, and 17th with the public hearing March 18th. All are at 7 p.m. The first meeting on the 11th tomorrow is here in council chambers. The other 3 meetings will be in the library program room. The budget meetings of the 11th, 12th, and 17th are going to be department specific. So on those evenings, the department heads that are on the agenda for those evenings will present, or I'll present on behalf of them, but any specific questions can be addressed to the department heads. And then on March 18th, we're doing the full public hearing. But public participation is going to be on the agenda for all of the meetings. So if anybody wants to come out to ask a department specific question, it'd be better off if they came the night the department heads here for that night.
Okay.
And those agendas are all posted.
Sid, I'm sorry, I'm sure this is in there, so the 11th is here tomorrow,
Yep.
Right.
and then the 12th and the 17th and the 18th are all at the library.
Library, yeah.
Thank you,
Yep.
appreciate that.
Sure. And as of now, CROG is still having their meetings, so I'm gonna be attending. So CROG is having executive committee meeting tomorrow and municipal services committee Tuesday the 17th, so unless there's any alteration, then I'll be attending those meetings. And then because of the public health concerns, we had mentioned the Tolland County Chamber of Commerce legislative breakfast on March 26th has been canceled. So if anybody was planning to go,
That's CNC.
that's at CNC, yeah, they canceled. I got a notice today about it, so if anybody planning on going, please remove it from your calendars. And that's all I have tonight.
Moving on. Wait a moment. Adoption of minutes.
Section of the agenda, so Madam Chair, if you entertain a motion to adopt the minutes as laid out in items 11.1, 11.2, and 11.3.
Does anybody have any amendments to those?
The regular meeting minutes did not include a copy of the emails that had been sent in to the town council. We usually include a copy of them,
You mean the February 25th?
the February 25th regular meeting minutes.
Okay, so we just need to add those.
We can add those to this week's, I guess. And if we need to, obviously just go by the dates both sent to us.
Yeah. Okay,
So, as amended, I would entertain a motion to adopt those minutes for 11.1, 11.2, and 11.3.
any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstained? Unanimous. Motion carries as amended. 12 is correspondence to council.
Yes. So, all of our emails that we received were about, well water conditions. All of them discussed the sodium and or chloride levels in their water. There's information about, is there information on our webpage on DEP where to send results?
No, they go to
See.
Mike is like the, he's the
Yeah.
boss of that information.
Okay, because, you know, what I would hate to see is someone send it to the town council and expect it to be taken care of from there, and it get lost in the shuffle.
You can forward it.
So if we came up with a
Yeah.
best practice to make sure that it's getting to the correct people, that would probably be smart.
Well, again, some of the emails that were sent were already copied to the health district.
Right, I'm
So-
thinking future.
Yeah, again, as long as they get to me, they'll get forwarded to the appropriate channel. So
Yep.
that's,
And, okay, and then, I'm sorry, there was one more on the, Board of Ed budget that came in after our joint meeting. Yes, so, that is also included there. And that is still put in our minutes.
Okay, chairperson's report. So we're gonna have some overlap here. I went to the retirement for Mary Ann also. It was a nice little gathering. It's, 30 years passes in no time. You know, like it doesn't seem like she was there for that long, and it definitely doesn't seem like she's, you know, of retirement, you know, that she's great.
She was
So
in a
I-
good energy about it.
She always did, yes, and I wish her very well. It was a nice little send-off. Repeating what Karen said, tomorrow's Board of Ed meeting is at the library, because we will be here.
High school library.
The high school library, yes, I'm sorry, the high school library. And I want to kind of elaborate a little bit on the budget meetings, like Mike said, for anybody who wants to come. We're doing it a little different than we did last year, where we're having specific groups there ready to discuss their budget. So if anybody has any interest in any of the topics that are being discussed there, you know, that's the best time to come, because you do get to ask questions of the department heads. It's direct, you know, we're all here and have questions and get answers. So it's a good opportunity for people to really be involved in the budget process. And an educated electorate is the best electorate, so.
Madam Chair, would it just help to get on the record what departments are meeting?
Yeah.
See, we got this, right? We were going, yeah.
So
My version
John,
has it.
yep, so March 11th, tomorrow night, I'm gonna do an overview of the entire budget process, and so that's really more for the public hearing for the 18th, but the specific departments tomorrow are Public Works, Finance, and General Government, so that's your clerk, that's your assessor, the tax collector, things like that, departments like that. The 12th which is in the library program room, is gonna be human services, library, recreation, law enforcement, and public safety, which is our fire department. And then the 17th is planning and community development, Board of Education, and solid waste.
And St. Patrick's Day. For those Irish ones in the crowd, we'll have that on St. Patrick's Day there.
Thank you, Madam Chair, thank you, Mike.
Sure. I have a meeting on Friday. It's an emergency meeting for the Eastern Highland Health District, where we're gonna be discussing the coronavirus stuff and what the health district is doing and how it's kind of gonna feed down. So I'll have information on that after the meeting. Mike can't be there because he's going to a baby shower for the next generation in his family, so. Although
Congratulations.
they're going to New York, they might not let, there might be a hard stop there, like,
I might meet you at the bridge.
yeah, have to float or it's over, but, so I'll make sure, Mike has everything, we have everything that we need so we can kind of discuss that. Karen, this is kind of a little, again, back to the Board of Ed thing, I saw today about the CIAC canceling all
Yeah.
winter tournaments,
Yep.
and
Stopped or canceled. Yes.
Yeah.
Some were already in process.
like they were, right, so, and I thought I had heard that they, at this time, are not looking to even reschedule.
They didn't say anything about future, Very upset because our Tolland boys are #1 in their division.
Yeah, well, so I didn't know if there's anything that, we can do to,
There's a petition going around already.
I did see that,
Yeah.
I know there's a petition, but I didn't know if anybody was like trying to definitely liaise with the CIAC to kind of see if there's something that they can do.
I don't know if they're paying attention to the petition. I know it's to still hold the games without spectators.
Without spectators,
is what
right.
they were saying.
Without spectators, or even if they say, they're gonna reschedule it, it's just a shame for them to not have any of the tournaments for it.
It's a shame and really sad for the seniors who
Absolutely.
going on.
So if there's anything that we can do to help, or to, publicize, or,
I'll see what I can find out, but I don't know. I mean, this whole thing is kind of out of our hands.
Yeah.
Safety before anything
Right.
else.
well, and I know, and I'm worried, a little bit worried now, because with the governor, like he said, the 100, I'm literally, as you said that, I'm like, what's the capacity in the gym? Like,
Especially now that we're getting more test kits, so we'll see the numbers.
Yeah.
It's just.
And the last thing that I wanted to mention actually was an email that I got, Steve and Mike, and it was from Ashley, the Board of Ed chair, with an idea that I think is great. She had mentioned working together with the town council to try to, that whole back wall back there, find a way to do a monthly or a quarterly artist of the month recognition, like one from each school. I know when my daughter was younger, I think they still do this, but when my kids were younger, one of my girls was selected for an artist of the month thing, and they took a thing that she did and they put it in a frame and they had it at the post office, and it was like a great wall of honor to bring your family down there and see that. I think it would be a good way to get some of the kids' artwork in the town building, and this room especially, because all of the big meetings are here, so I know we were starting to kind of like kick it around. I think it's something that we can talk about without getting crazy, like it's gonna cost us $10,000 to put something back there, but just have a area where we can maybe display like 1 month from each school.
Yeah, I think we're gonna work with Public Works to discuss what could be feasible in terms of either a corkboard or some sort of display easel that can
Command
be,
strips.
that can be
even.
hung up in a way that wouldn't impact the wall, because I know that it's a fixture of the building, and we have to make sure that whatever's there is secured safely, because for people like Mike and other individuals that are seeing in the
Sitting
back, you
there.
wanna make sure it doesn't fall on them, obviously.
No, Mike, we don't want you to slam back and like have artwork fall on you.
So that picture is not a picture of the month on the mic.
That's not, that is a wonderful
It is from
picture.
1895.
We can take that picture and put it over here, but I think it would be great to
Yeah.
kind of have artwork back
agree.
there of the kids, like
Yeah,
one
because
from
the
each school.
library does something similar for local artisans.
And the
Yeah.
program room.
Well, in the program room and also across from circulation, so this is sort of
Yes.
another way, and also kind of brightens up and brings some more variety to the town council chambers, because it is clean, but it's also very gray,
Yeah, and I think
pops
it's,
some color.
like I said, when my daughter was selected, it was a huge deal, she got to go to the post office, she brought her family, everybody went to go and look at it and that, so, having it here in town office, because it brings kids and families in, and,
Yeah.
I'd like to look at artwork.
They still do that, and they also have displays at the Board of Ed building.
I know that they did some at the
Yeah.
Board of Ed too.
Yeah, and currently the high school does
They do
displays
it, yeah.
on the halls.
In the hall, second floor.
You know, no, two places, between the doors of the auditorium and then across from the library. Plus, there's artwork being displayed on the second floor in the atrium and in
The art hallway too.
and
art
in the
hallway.
hallway and in the library.
Yeah.
So.
So they're doing a lot up there. I'd like to get something to do. I think that's like, pick an artist of the month kind of a thing. Then, and in the summertime, there's, FRC goes on all summer and there's daycare programs and stuff like that, so, I think it's a good idea. I don't know, what we kind of, I guess we just keep talking to Public Works and see what we can do about it. And
Yeah,
then,
we have to figure out a system of who's gonna, is there gonna be a contest or how are we gonna
I
decide?
would think that would kind of fall more to, like, I would assume the Board of Ed, like they would establish, what they would want to do for standards or whatever, and have the schools pick, and we're just facilitating the space and being able to stare at pretty pictures, so. I think that's all that I have right now. I think that's it for me. So that gets us to communications and petitions from council persons. Does anybody have anything? No?
Two, so there was one, I had a resident reach out regarding, portable bathrooms. I had Mike on copy, so Bruce responded regarding that. They just made note of the fact that it was an especially drier winter, and there's a lot of people in when it's been a more mild winter that like to use the parks and recreation areas, but we get rid of the porta potties. They move October, mid-November until basically the spring sports season. So they just inquired as to the cost of it would be, if it could be extended an extra month later, an extra month earlier. And Bruce had responded that it's about $58 per unit per month. And he just discussed some of the challenges that we may face in terms of winter weather and the need for different chemicals to properly function. So that was just sort of an ongoing discussion. And then the other one was actually sort of more informal. I was driving along Pecos Road near Apple Road, near the NAFLA Association property, and someone had mentioned that the road was in fairly poor condition. I meant to email Public Works about where it is on the schedule for road improvement, but didn't get the time to, so they just, when you make that turn from Hunter Road onto Pecos, it's kind of
torn up.
it's pretty torn up, so they were just curious when that might be on the schedule for replacement or repair.
That is actually online. If they go online, first of all, there's two
Yeah.
things. There's one place where they can report that issue online and put that exactly where it is, and then Department of Public Works will go look at it. And there is also, I don't know if it's been updated lately, but there is a list out there that
Yeah.
tells you exactly when roads are on the road.
Yeah, there is, I think when we were doing the parks and facilities tour, he said it wasn't totally up to date, that there's some things that have shifted around, so it could use a little bit of an update.
Yeah, maybe we can see if Scott can update that.
Okay.
It is.
Online, the Cumberland Foundation's area of our town website is a little out of date. There's one other thing, I forgot what it was, it said 2017 to 2018, some sort of plan. I'll send you is it okay if I send you the link? So that you can see
Sure.
where it is and either
I know-
update it if it's something or.
I know that recently we did take a look at that portion of the website, because one of the suggestions I had heard was to archive the old info, and I'm not sure if that went through. I'll take a quick look, but there's information on the website dating back to 16, 17, like you said. We're trying to keep the fresher things on top,
Yeah.
but there really hasn't been any new information that's come through recently, so,
Yeah, this wasn't just the Cumberland Foundations, it was something else
Okay.
too.
yeah, I know, we did look at that after the last time we heard about it, and we tried to archive some of the older things. I think I'll have to take a look how Kim in our office did it, but we're trying to keep the fresher things at the top of the
Right.
list.
Oh, supercalifragilistic. Mike, I had a couple of things for you on the manager's report, but I can send them to you if you don't want me to give them to you.
Yeah, I mean,
All right,
I have to go back to that, I guess.
yeah, that's okay.
One other quick thing, actually, just before I forget, with Mary Ann retiring, there actually is that vacancy, so just for the public, if you know anyone that's interested, looking for a replacement reference adult librarian, they've had a few interviews, one fell through and another ended up going to a different library, so they're still in an ongoing search process, so. Big shoes to fill,
Yeah.
a very, very core service, because now they're down 2 full-time employees in the library between that and the children's library, I believe. has left or is in the process of leaving, so.
Okay. And that gives us the public listening participation, any subject within the jurisdiction of the town council, 3-minute limit.
I just have a quick addendum to the board rep report. The Footloose banner was actually provided by, Tolland Friends of Tolland Music.
Nice.
Group, so just so you know, they provided that banner.
What do you do with it when it's done? What do they do with them when they're done?
There's places that
There's
recycle
dates
them
on
and
it,
turn them into
so
handbags.
not
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Get yourself a nice
Yes,
Footloose
that's awesome.
handbag.
There you go, right? Footloose. Rock the old one, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Anything else? No, all right. Then that gets us to item now number 16, which is executive session. And do we want,
Yes.
okay, we're gonna
Like Wilkinson.
like Wilkinson. And thank you all for coming.
He's like, why?
Hi.
Oh,
Yeah, we need to.